Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, is campaigning for his presidential bid. I had the opportunity to catch up with him. Take a look. Well, Governor Asa Hutchinson joins me now, former governor of Arkansas, who's now seeking the presidential nomination. Governor, thanks for being with me.
Oh, it's good to be with you. It's great to be in South Carolina.
Well, welcome to the Palmetto State. Why do you want to be the next president of the United States?
Well, because our country is in a position that it needs to have a course correction. The Biden policies on energy, on federal spending, on border security, all of the above, including our national security issues, has taken our country in the wrong direction. And so I fought for the conservative cause for all my political life, and I don't want to see our country go to the left. And so whenever that happens, you engage. And I'm running for president because I can make a difference with my experience as a federal prosecutor, as a member of Congress, as a governor for 8 years. I bring that experience to do some things that this country needs, including correcting the wrong-guided policies of President Biden.
And why do you think that you should be the one? This is a very big playing field, obviously. There's a lot of people who have their name, thrown in the hat here. So why you?
Well, first of all, I have a high regard for a couple of South Carolinians that are looking at running, and both have announced. And there's some really good people in the race. But, it's up to the voters to figure out, who is the right one? What's the right leader to address the specific challenges that we have today? And what are the major issues that we have? If it's balancing the budget, I've done that as governor for 8 years. In fact, the last time in Congress that the budget was balanced was when I was there 20 years ago. Whenever you look at the needs for our border and controlling the southern border, I had that responsibility, and we did it much better, not perfect, but much better than what it is now, and I know what needs to be done there. If you're looking at the violence and the challenge of crime in our streets, I have the experience as a federal prosecutor, as a top federal law enforcement agency head, as head of the DEA. If you're looking at fentanyl, I've had to address the crisis we've had in our country with opioid abuse in the past. And so those credentials and national security credentials, I think, set me apart. But very importantly, though, anytime a voter makes a decision as who's going to be the new leader of the country, it's about a trust relationship and who you trust and who do you have confidence in. And that's what the voters have got to weigh as you look down the path in the early primary states.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the polling right now. Obviously, Donald Trump seems very much to be the front runner, followed by Ron DeSantis. And if you look at polls, you're not polling as high as they are right now. How do you turn that around, and do you think you can overcome Trump?
Well, I do, and it's early in the campaign. We have a lot of territory to cover, and I like the retail politics. I like whenever you're meeting with voters, you're looking in the eye, you tell them what you believe and what you want to do. And so whenever you look at the Republican primary, there's multiple voices out there. There's not as many candidates as we had in 2016, and that's going to winnow its way down to a much more manageable number as the campaign goes on. But you have Donald Trump at a very high level, and we'll see where that goes in the future. And then you've got, as you mentioned, Ron DeSantis, that's really lost traction in recent weeks, months. And then you got everybody else that's just really making their case, and people are getting to know them. And I think whenever you see what we have to offer, our ideas, experience, I'm confident that we can move up.
I want to talk to you about the indictment that Trump is facing. Obviously, we saw that come out. As I understand it, you disagree with the indictment, but you also think he should drop out of the race. How do you reconcile with those two statements? Because if you disagree with what they're putting on him, but you also say you should be disqualified, some would say that might sound contradictory.
Well, first, that's been my principle as a public official, as a governor, that if a public official is under indictment, then they need to concentrate on that. The office is more important than the individual who's seeking it. And in this case, you're talking about the presidency of the United States and who can best focus on that, best lead the country, and the multiple distractions are a challenge. And I know he's not going to leave, and so it's not really that relevant. And ultimately, and I want the voters to decide this and not somebody in a courtroom. So, we move on from there, and you see continued distractions, but ultimately the voters in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina are going to have their say-so on it, and we want to be able to make our case. And if we want to win in November, I believe you have to have new leadership. And we have to be able to attract independent and suburban voters. And I want to win again. I want to win the presidency because so much is at stake. And I believe that you'll see that there needs to be an alternative.
A lot of people seem to be looking for that alternative. I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you about the middle class. Some of my viewers want to know what you plan to do for the middle class. They say that their groceries are too expensive, gas is too expensive, and they feel like they continue to be taxed to death. What are your plans for those people?
The first thing we're going to do is to start a pro-growth energy policy. In other words, we need to have production of energy in this country that will lower the cost of gas at the pump, that will help middle America. That's really critically important. And whether they're the fossil fuels or whether it's nuclear fuel or hydropower, as we have in Arkansas, we've got to produce energy. We don't want our president having to go to Venezuela and to go to Saudi Arabia and say, please, can you produce more? We've got to produce the United States. That helps you at the pump. Secondly, we spend too much federal money, and that causes inflation, and that causes higher interest rates. And the higher interest rates impact middle America again, whether it's a credit card debt or whether it is a car loan or you want to borrow for any investment or a home, your first home. It costs more because the interest rates go up, and that is starting because of the excessive federal spending that this administration has done. And so you've got to get hold of the economy, and you got to reduce regulation so the private sector can go. What leaders need to do is to bring out the best of America and to bring out the best of our economy and the individual initiative and entrepreneurship of America. We got to empower them and pull back on government spending and government constraints.
Two more questions before I let you go. I want to ask you now about what are your plans if you're not the nominee? Will you commit to supporting who is the nominee? And then also going back to excessive spending, do you agree with sending all the money to Ukraine?
Well, those are two different questions, but
yes.
I've always supported the Republican nominee. I'm a Republican. I believe in the conservative cause, and I believe we're going to have a candidate, a nominee that's going to be able to reflect that and win in November. So I expect to be able to support the Republican nominee. In terms of Ukraine, I mean, first of all, it's important what's happening in Ukraine. We've had our previous generations fight for freedom in Europe, and we don't want to see Europe endangered again by an aggressive Russia that's trying to recreate the Soviet Union. And so you've got Ukraine fighting their battle. We need to support them in it. Now, you ask about the amount of money. Put it in perspective. It's way less than $200 billion that we've used to support Ukraine. And the last spending bill that Biden did was $1.2 trillion. And so, we're spending too much, but that's a small part of it, what we're doing in Ukraine, and it pays big dividends in showing a stronger America that will discourage an aggressive Russia and an aggressive China, more importantly.
Excellent. Well, I wish you the very best with the campaign. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
For more information on his campaign, you can visit his campaign website, asa2024.com.